We have grade one turf racing this weekend at Kentucky Downs. Let's talk about it on NYRA Bets. Hi everyone, Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with a preview of this Saturday's Franklin-Simpson Stakes Grade 1 at Kentucky Downs. Now, before we get into this race preview, I want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, weekly programs, and so much more. Listen, folks, I told you we'd have a lot of content for you after Saratoga, and this weekend we got Kentucky Downs and Del Mar content right up here on NYRA Bets, so you definitely want to press that subscribe button today. Additionally, if you're not playing on NYRA Bets yet, you're missing out, quite frankly, because if you bet $75 at Del Mar and Kentucky Downs this Saturday and Sunday, you can get $15 back at NYRA Bets. So make sure to opt in to that great promo that we have on NYRA Bets. All right, folks, listen, we have grade one turf racing at Kentucky Downs. Now, there is some storms that are coming through Franklin, Kentucky that everybody's keeping an eye on. We will wait and see how that plays out. So it's possible these races that were carded for Saturday may be moved. Because, of course, remember, there is no off turf at Kentucky Downs. You got one racing option, and that's it. And if they're not racing on turf, they're not racing at all. So obviously, make sure to pay attention to this. Also, make sure to see what the track conditions are and the course condition is leading up to this race. But the Franklin-Simpson's a really interesting race. 6.5 furlongs on the turf. And listen, if you know a lot about Kentucky Downs, you probably know some of the things I'm going to say. It's a unique turf course. If you're new to playing Kentucky Downs, and that's something to keep in mind. It's not just a pristine oval. It has a unique configuration, and then there's also the undulation. I should have a little buzzword every time I say that word undulation during this video. But the reality is it is a course that's more of a steeplechase course. It kind of goes up and down. It's much more of a European-style course. So that's something that not a lot of North American horses are used to. Some of them take to it very well. Others, a little bit less so. When we're talking about a 6 furlong sprint, I would encourage you to handicap this the way you might when you're handicapping 6.5 going the downhill at Santa Anita. What do I mean by that? Generally speaking, you want to see horses that have experience going a little longer than 6.5. So the course sometimes can take a little bit out of a horse. So if a horse is a 5.5, 6 furlong specialist, now they're going 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. Not saying they can't do it, but it's a little bit more of a challenge. A lot of times I like to look for milers who are cutting back in some instances. Those are horses that I think really could be dangerous in this sort of a spot. And we'll talk about a few of those throughout this particular card. But let's dive into this 12 race field. There are 4 also eligibles as well, but it's a really hotly contested field. Your morning line favorite is the number 8 Spiced Up. And then you have the number 7 Governor Sam at 4-1 as their second choice. Of the two, I very much so prefer Spiced Up. And let's start there. For trainer Bill Mott. This is a horse that started on the dirt, ran against a horse like Donut God, actually back in 2024 at Churchill Downs, and then went to the bench for a while. Went from the bench from November 24 to June 25. Mott brings this horse back in a maiden special weight race at Belmont at the Big A, going 6 furlongs. Horse wins easy and going away, too. Really widened that gap toward the end, which makes me think going 6.5, 7, a mile is not outside of this horse's wheelhouse. And then Mott takes the horse coming off of a maiden special weight victory, steps the horse up immediately to the grade 3 Mahoney, where the horse does nothing but run down overwhelming favorite Governor Sam that day, going 5.5, showing off a tremendous turn of foot coming for home. That horse was loaded for bear at the top of the stretch. Now Mott's putting this horse, who is Judd Mott owned and bred, into a grade 1. I don't think that's by accident. Bill Mott doesn't do these things willy-nilly. And anybody who says, well, the ownership, Judd Mott, Kentucky, etc., all you got to do is look at this year's Kentucky Derby, folks, and the Triple Crown. Bill Mott, even when you have Godolphin behind him, is going to do what he thinks is best for that horse. And if that means skipping the Preakness with Sovereignty, that's what he did. And in this case, if it means stepping this horse up to a grade 1 Franklin-Simpson, I'm sure Judd Mott wouldn't mind seeing that paycheck come through, but Bill Mott's going to do what's right by this horse. And the fact he's stepping this one up against this type of company tells you exactly his opinion of this horse. So I think Spiced Up is a real dangerous horse. Part of it is, you have Quality Road up top. You have a dam out of Pioneer of the Nile. If you go back to the second dam, you have a little bit more distance in the female pedigree, it certainly would indicate this horse it can go longer than 6.5. And so everything I had just said about, hey, I really like milers that cut back. Yes, but here's a horse that is ascending. I don't think we've gotten to the bottom two yet. And there's a horse that I think can go a lot longer than what he has been allowed to run. And all you have to do is look at the way he's finished races, coming from off the pace and extending his lead in all instances. So this is a horse that's getting stronger late in the race. I think that's a real positive with regards to going longer. Now, does he take to Kentucky Downs? That's the $64,000 question. We'll have to wait and see. But he, I think, is the much more dangerous of the two. Whereas I feel like Governor Sam, blinkers are coming off. Irad Ortiz Jr. up on the mount for the third straight time after taking over for Paco Lopez, who had ridden this horse quite a few times. But the bottom line is this is more of a 5.5 specialist, in my opinion. I don't like Governor Sam stretching out to 6.5 furlongs over this Kentucky Downs course. So if you're going to go with a shorter price, I think spiced up of the two makes the more sense. Now, let's talk about a horse that I think is interesting and fits that profile that I talked about, a miler cutting back, and that's the number 9, Me Bago. For trainer Mark Casse, Flavian Pratt up in the irons, taking over for Irad Ortiz Jr., interestingly enough. But this is a horse that is a prime example of a miler who can get the distance under the right circumstance. Remember, won that Colonel Liam back in March at Gulfstream Park, going a mile. Hasn't been able to win since, though. Is a front-running horse that I think a mile's just simply too long. I like the cut back to 6.5 over this sort of a turf course. I think is going to be really beneficial. Remember, when this horse has won, it's been going shorter a lot of times. One in debut going 5 furlongs, one at the Algonquin at Woodbine going 5 furlongs on the turf, then one going 7.5, which is admittedly a 2-turn race, but still a little bit shorter. Then, like I said, won that Colonel Liam as well, won the Dania Beach, also going 1:70. But again, going up against maybe tougher turf competition, the Hall of Fame, the Penn Mile, was fading late in those races. I think the cutback's exactly what the doctor ordered. I really like Me Bago quite a bit at 10-1. Now, another horse that's a miler that's cutting back, who I think is pretty dangerous, is the number 4, Dream On from Mark Casse. I'll lean toward the higher priced of the two in terms of Me Bago being 10-1 over Dream On being 6-1, but very similar profile in terms of a miler cutting back, but a different type of running style. Dream On coming from more off the pace, Me Bago setting those early fractions. So, Casse will have one up there early and one running late. Like I said, I do think Dream On fits the profile of a miler who should like cutting back to 6.5 furlongs, but I do question whether or not the running style is really going to fit, because you do see a lot of these 6.5 furlong sprints in Kentucky Downs can be dominated by front end speed. So if Me Bago is a horse that can get up there and get brave, might be tough to relinquish that lead, considering he's got that foundation for going longer. Now, another horse that's cutting back, who I'm a big fan of, is number 5, Antisocial, 12-1 for Jorge Duarte Jr. I like this horse a lot. Finished second last time out in the Grade 2 Secretariat. Won an allowance race before that at Colonial going a mile. Broke its maiden actually at Belmont at the Big A in an off-turf race going 6 furlongs. Horse can come from a little off the pace, but also can track the pace. I think that's a lot of versatility. The Hall of Famer Joel Rosario is up on the mount. I just think this is a horse sired by Not This Time. Very versatile sire. Antisocial 12-1. Feels like a horse that'll have the right sort of running style, could sit the right trip, and an ascending horse. What do I mean by that? The last 3 Beyer speed figures since coming onto the turf, 72, 78, 83. This horse keeps getting faster and faster and faster. Yes, has only won one of those 3 races, but one was third by a neck and one was third by a length in a Grade 2. So it's been keeping good company. I think the cutback, this is one I like quite a bit. Another one who I'm interested in is the number 11, Out on Bail, I should say, 15-1 for trainer Mike Maker. This horse stretched out to a mile in the Penn Mile and actually didn't do that bad. Finished third that day by a length over a yielding turf course where there wasn't necessarily a lot of passing going on that day. Louis Saez takes over the mount. Horse hasn't run since that race. But here's my thoughts. Yes, this one was more of a 5.5 specialist, but showed the ability to go to a mile and not fade going a mile there for Maker. Maker's always good getting horses to go a little bit longer on the turf. Sired by Tiz the Law. Here's the other thing about Out on Bail. 8 career starts, 8 career times hitting the board. Has never missed the top 3. This is a horse that I would strongly consider using in my vertical wagers, exactas, trifectas, because this horse just, I don't know if this horse knows how to run a bad race at this point. Doesn't always get up for the win, only has 2 of those, maiden special weight, New York bred race, as well as the Skidmore Stakes against Open Company. But this one I think is pretty dangerous and has absolutely held his own against a horse like Governor Sam, finished second by a neck a few races ago in the Indian Summer. So has really held its own against some really nice horses. Sired by Tiz the Law of a Street Cry mare. I love that pedigree for going a little bit longer on the turf. So those are some of the horses that I'm really paying attention to in the Franklin-Simpson. How am I playing it? Well, listen, I do like spiced up quite a bit. I think Bill Mott's sitting on a really nice horse. So the 8's my top choice. That said, if you're looking for a price, I think the 3 horses I've listed underneath, the 9 Mibago, the 5 Antisocial, and the 11 Out on Bail, all are horses that I would strongly consider using in any sort of a late pick 5 sequence for this year's Franklin-Simpson Stakes. So I'm playing 8, 9, 5, 11. But again, depending on what price you're getting, depending on what it comes like at post time, depending on turf conditions, all of those things might be a little bit different. Also, depending on how the course is playing throughout the day in terms of front end speed, being good or bad, this is all potentially going to have to be formulated into that calculation of who are we going to be betting when it comes time to post. But these are the horses I think these are the 4 horses that I really want to be including. Dream On as well. Interesting horse. I'm maybe not as high on Dream On as a couple of others, but certainly a very serious horse. Chasing Liberty, troubleshooting, in my opinion, kind of fall into the Governor Sam category. 5.5 furlong specialist. I'm not sure. Got the 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. All right, folks. Well, that will do it for this Franklin-Simpson Stakes preview. My wonderful colleague and co-host, Kaylee Shapiro, she'll be back next week. We'll have a bunch of different content for you. But in the meantime, you're stuck with me, and I got you covered for Kentucky Downs. And I also have you covered out west for the Del Mar Debutante and the Del Mar Futurity. Make sure to check out those videos right up here on NYRA Bets. Make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. My name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races. And reminding you, friends, it's now post time.